What's going on, people, and welcome to another video, and it is the long awaited player versus player second episode, and the one that won the vote, as you can see, was Gerrard versus Lampard. Both legends of the game, both legends of English football. Also my new favourite video to do other than the Premier League predictions. I love doing it, so appreciate everyone that's taken part voting in the polls for the player versus player. I will put a new player versus player option poll up in the community tab after this one goes up, so look out for that in the community tab. Go over there and vote so you can see which player versus player you see next. But this one is Steven Gerrard versus Frank Lampard. What we do is we go through each category, and it's a preference thing, a personal thing, but you can also get involved in the comments and do your own. And I'll go through all these categories one by one, and I decide on who I believe was the better of each category, and then each category they get a point for whoever I think is better, and then at the end we add up the totals, and whoever comes out on top gets more points, obviously, wins the player versus player. So first up we've got passing. Both of them highly skilled in this area. The amount of assists Lampard got with Drogba at Chelsea, you can't argue with, but also Gerrard with the likes of Owen, Torres, Suarez. It's a difficult one when I think back of it. Obviously Lampard and Drogba had a very good record, won titles under Mourinho. It's tricky, this one. I think I would edge it to Lampard, but not by a lot. But I'm going to give Lampard the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to go with him for the passing, but there's very little in it. Next up we've got goals. Now this is just in my head, like types of goals they scored, memorable goals. If we're doing it off of memorable goals, more stick out in my mind for Gerrard. The ones that pop up in my head are the West Ham FA Cup one, and also the against Olympiacos in the Champions League. Obviously the header against AC Milan in the Champions League as well in the final. Lampard did score his fair few share of important ones, and obviously he's the highest scoring midfielder in the league ever. It's a tricky one. It depends what you're kind of deciding it on. I mean, Lampard scored a lot more than Gerrard did, but I think Gerrard had the more memorable ones. On this one, it's even harder than the passing for me to decide. I'm going to go with Lampard again for goals because he got the record for midfield goals. I think you have to give it to him, but I do think Gerrard had the more memorable moments in terms of big goals. But number-wise, Lampard. Tackling, I would give this one to Gerrard. I think he was a lot more ferocious than Lampard was off the ball. Probably more of a box-to-box midfielder than Lampard was. And I do think the defensive side of the game, Gerrard had in trumps more than Lampard did. So for tackling, I would go with Gerrard. Next up, we got athleticism. Both of them great athletes, obviously, to go as far and achieve what they did in the game anyway, in their positions. But I would edge this one to Gerrard again. I think that he got around the pitch easier. I believe he was fitter than Lampard was, and just a little bit more of an athlete than Lampard. So I would go with Gerrard for athleticism. Next up, agility. I would probably edge it again to Gerrard. There's not a lot in it for me. I don't think either of them were like a Hazard or a Messi in terms of that low centre of gravity style. And both quite tall anyway. But I feel like Gerrard was a little bit more free of movement and range. So I would go with Gerrard for agility. But it's a tough one to call on that one. Strength. These are also tough. I'm finding this a lot tougher than the Pele Maradona one, if I'm honest. Strength. I would give it to Gerrard. I think the amount of driving through the midfield he did, I don't think many players have ever done that in as much as he did, and for the longevity. I just think that he was more of a battler in that midfield than Lampard. So I would give it to Gerrard for strength. Work rate, again, I know I've heard stories of Frank and his earlier days at West Ham and stuff where he really put the work in, and even at Chelsea, like working on his game constantly, and even in terms of fitness and stuff. But Gerrard as well, I've heard so many people say like this guy was a beast in training, whether it was technical ability, stamina, whatever it was. I think it's hard to discredit him, and I think that I've heard more about him in terms of this and seen it from my own eyes as well on the pitch. I think Gerrard had more of an engine. I would go with Gerrard for work rate. And then moving over to this side, guys, set pieces. I would give this one to Lampard. I remember him scoring some fantastic free kicks over his career, and I would probably say he was better at free kicks and penalties than Gerrard. Proof is there, Gerrard was no rookie when it comes to them either, but I would edge the set pieces to Lampard. Trophies, Lampard edges it on terms of numbers. He got 11, whereas Gerrard got 9. What sort of swings it as well for me a bit is that Gerrard didn't win that Premier League title, got very close to it, and we all know what happened. And Lampard won Champions Leagues as Gerrard did, but he also won Premier Leagues. So for trophies, I would go with Lampard, not just because he's got a couple more, but it's that Premier League thing that decides it for me. Lampard won a few, whereas Gerrard only got his hands on the Champions League and FA Cup. So yeah, I know he won things like, what was it, the Carling or the Worthington Cup and things like that, but they're not big trophies to me. So in terms of the Premier League stuff, I have to edge it to Lampard. Next up, we've got career. Again, it's all preference. It's up for debate. I think obviously Gerrard stayed until the very end of his career and then went to Galaxy. And obviously he was very close to moving to Chelsea, whereas Lampard obviously moved on at the end as well. But it's tough career-wise. I feel like Lampard obviously has more accolades for the trophies. They were both pretty much one-man clubs for most of their career. They both went to America and played, and obviously Lampard went to City for a short period. I would go with Lampard because, again, the trophies come into it for me, and then Premier League trophies come into it and decide it for me on that one. So not a lot in it, but I would edge it to Lampard. Legacy, I think Gerrard left a bigger legacy than Lampard did, even though Lampard has more trophies, more goals. I think people think of Gerrard more than Lampard when you think of Premier League midfielders of all time, even though he didn't win a Premier League. So again, it's a preference thing. I would go with Gerrard. It's tough, but I would go with Gerrard. I think more people would have him in their team than they would have had Lampard, and that's not because Lampard's terrible. I just think it's a preference thing, and it depends on what sort of player you want. I would go with Gerrard for legacy. Star power, up for debate again. I don't think either of these guys were your types of Maradona, out there, loud, bigger than life characters. So for this one, it's quite interesting because neither of them stand out to me in terms of that sort of walk into a room and everyone's like, wow. But I would edge it to Gerrard. I think he has a bit more of an aura about him, even now when you see them in interviews and stuff. And I think more people would stand up and take notice to Gerrard than they would Lampard. And that's just personal opinion, but that's my feelings on it. So I'd go with Gerrard for that. Shooting, both fantastic techniques with their shooting. I love the way Gerrard hit the ball. Some of the goals he scored were absolute belters and bangers. But then on the other side of it, you got Lampard's goals, also scored some bangers himself, but he's got the numbers as well. So I'll give it to Lampard in terms of just the respect for what he did as a midfielder with the amount of goals he scored in the league. But I feel bad for not giving it to Gerrard because he's one of my favourite ever. Techniques of hitting the ball, how he did, I loved it. But out of respect, I'd give it to Lampard for the numbers and what he did as a midfielder with goals for the league and its history. So, and then the last one for this one, guys, is heading. I don't think either of them were fantastic headers of the ball, but more in my head stand out for me with Gerrard. Obviously, you've got that one in the Champions League final against AC Milan that helps, is the springboard for the comeback in that final. I've seen Gerrard score a few headers. I've also seen Lampard score a few. But for me, I would give it to Gerrard for the headers. I remember more of Gerrard's than Lampard's, to be honest. But neither of them I don't think we're terrible at the technique of heading the ball, but more in my head and memory stick out for me with Gerrard. So that is it, guys. Let's add it up. We got Lampard 1, 2-0, 2-1 Lampard, 2-2, 3-2 Gerrard, 4-2 Gerrard, 5-2 Gerrard, 5-3 Gerrard, 5-4 Gerrard, 5-5, 6-5 Gerrard, 7-5 Gerrard, 7-6 Gerrard, 8-6 Gerrard. It's interesting. I was wondering what it would be. And Gerrard edges it by 2. I thought this one would be close. I did think it would be closer than the Pele Maradona one, even though I don't know what I'm going to put beforehand, because in my head it was always, there weren't a ton in it for me. That is it, guys. Gerrard finishes this one on top by 2 points, 8-6 against Frank Lampard. Both fantastic players. I miss watching them both. I do prefer Gerrard as a player, but as I said in the first one, I preferred Maradona as a player to Pele, but Pele won it in terms of numbers and how I did it. So yeah, love it. Love doing these videos, guys. Keep joining in on the community on these and getting involved in these ones, guys. I hope you enjoy it too. Let me know your categories in the comments and who you would have for each category as well, and then add up your totals so I can see yours in the comments too. These are my favourite videos now, other than the Premier League prediction ones, guys. So there's going to be a lot of these coming, but I will let you guys get involved in the community tab on the polls, because it is the community that is important here. You get to see which one we get to see next, guys. I can't wait to do it. And I'll also today be dropping my post-match recap for Manchester United's game yesterday against Wolves. And also, I've got to drop my Premier League predictions either later today or tomorrow morning. They'll be up. So either later today or tomorrow morning, watch out for the next set of Premier League predictions for game week 19. Hope you guys are good. Enjoyed a couple games that are on today. And football is thick and fast. I love it. Appreciate everyone supporting. Make sure you're subscribing and the notifications are on. Hope you enjoyed it. Speak to you guys soon.